you mentioned Tim Canova. Is there anybody else that is really anxious to sign on? And one of the first questions we got, which I know you knew this question was coming, are we ever going to get Bernie?
Yeah, that's right. Tim is actually the latest in a line of people who've left the Democratic Party, and they haven't gotten as much attention. And so in Colorado and in Maine and in Massachusetts, there have been state representatives who have left the Democratic Party. And in Maine, so many of them have left, it's been like 6 or 7, that they formed an independent caucus. And the independent caucus is, in the state house, denies the Republicans or the Democrats the majority in the state house. And that has given them great power in the state house, actually. And so it goes to show, again, how you don't need to completely replace one party or another to be able to start to wield political power as independents, and as progressives, because that's begun to happen in Maine. And yes, there are other people who are interested, but I have to let some of them make their own announcements. And then also, when talking about Bernie, I hope that, we could get Bernie at some point, but I don't think it's contingent upon Bernie. I think that the reason that we were so successful was not necessarily because we were just trying to draft Bernie. And, right now, obviously, we're not trying to draft Bernie. We're the Movement for a People's Party. We're building it, regardless of whether Bernie comes over. Because I think what's more important, and we think what's more important, is that the majority of Americans have decided that they want a major new party, that there's a record number. It's almost 2 out of 3 Americans that are calling for a major new party now. So that's a profound loss of confidence. I think that with Bernie, this and so this gets to what you discussed, Ron, on that episode, which I think was great. And the title of the episode was, did Bernie sell out? And I think that that's the wrong question in a way, because I think that's analyzing this from the perspective of individuals and personalities. And I think that our analysis of politics and parties kind of needs to mature in the same way that our analysis of systemic poverty has matured, systemic racism. We understand that those things are not necessarily the consequence of kind of, one bad politician or, one corrupt, member of a state house or even one corporation, that is really funding the wrong politicians and that kind of thing. It's a product of a system, of a structure, and that applies to the Democratic Party too. You are very much, human beings in general are products of their environment, and so going into the Democratic Party, you have all of these institutional pressures to conform to the Democratic Party that don't exist outside of it. And, so to give you some examples, the reason that I left our revolution was that the leadership of our revolution, including Bernie, had at that time decided that he wanted to take money from billionaires at our revolution. And that just weeks after the campaign had ended, a campaign that was so radically successful, built upon the premise of saying that this is paid for by Bernie Sanders, the bottom of every piece of merchandise, the bottom of every email, the bottom of every communication. That was the stamp of authenticity, was saying paid for by Bernie Sanders, not the billionaires. Well, right after that, Bernie Sanders, Jeff Weaver were interested in taking money from big donors, from billionaires at our revolution, using
Why do you think that was?
For status. What?
Why do you think that was?
I think it's because of what I'm talking about. I don't think it's because, because it's like, oh, Bernie's selling out, or because, Bernie doesn't have any integrity, but rather it's because Bernie went into the Democratic Party at that point. He was supporting Hillary Clinton. He had made that decision a couple of months ago. And that creates all of these pressures, and it puts you in a different setting also to conform to the existing corporate structure, you know, in order to get things done in that corporate structure. You have to work within it. Another example is Keith Ellison. Keith Ellison was the first person to endorse Bernie as a member of Congress. And Keith Ellison, he's co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, and he is a good progressive, you know. But here's an example of what happens again when you try to gain prominence, power, authority inside the Democratic Party. Well, when he announced his run for DNC chair, within a month he had endorsed Stephen Biddle, a billionaire real estate developer in Florida, for state party chair. Within 2 months, he had pulled back on his promise to take corporate money out of the DNC, which was a staple of his campaign. Within 3 months, he was meeting with David Brock and other very wealthy donors, including billionaires, to discuss party strategy. And so when you think, you know, even people like Bernie Sanders, even people like Keith Ellison, you know, can go into this machine as people who hold these principles so dearly, you know, and they do, progressive principles, and working to create a society that works for working people. But even they, going into this machine, really cannot just divorce themselves from their environment and from all of the pressures of that machine. There's a great quote from Dan Cantor of the Working Families Party that I think sums it up. And that is, you don't take the Democratic Party over. It takes you over. You know, and so at the same time, while people are thinking, we're going to elect the progressive here, we're going to elect the progressive there, you know, you're neglecting the history of what has happened. Progressives have been elected in the Democratic Party for many decades. They are few and far between, but they have been elected. But as soon as they enter that machine, the thing, you know, then and they begin, all of those pressures begin to be applied to them, and they find themselves in a new setting, you know, where you have to compromise principles in order to accomplish anything, you know, and you're always invariably faced with situations. For example, there's a state house, or there's a legislative body that is close in the balance between the Democrats and Republicans. Well, guess what? The Democrat who is going to determine whether it's the Democrats control that state house is a conservative blue dog Democrat, doesn't stand for anything you do, you know, but winning that chamber depends on electing that person, you know? Well, people like Keith Ellison and other progressives endorse that person. And that's how it always happens. And it always slides down. And every effort to reform the Democrats, every effort to elect progressives from a progressive perspective, always it devolves into blue no matter who. It devolves into any Democrat is better than any Republican. And we know that's not true, because it is the fact that the Democrats are not progressive. It is the fact that the Democrats have abandoned working people that has actually enabled and empowered the Republican Party to come to power. And so it's not that analysis that the Republican Party, you know, is like the greater evil and the Democrats are the lesser evil. They're a little bit worse, you know, and so we just got to keep picking the Democrats. That actually doesn't acknowledge the relationship between the two parties, and the fact that the Democrats are so bad that they actually empower and enable the Republicans to come to power by not inspiring turnout, as people recognize that they don't stand for working people.
Well, they stand for nothing. I mean, it's when you have two parties that have the same owners, you know, you're going to get the same. I mean, it's one of those things. The way I see it, Republicans offer terrible ideas that only benefit the 1%, and Democrats offer pretty much no alternative. I mean, like, I love to use the example of Alabama. Here are your options, Alabama. A person who's going to do nothing for you, or a pedophile. So you get to go to the poll, and people showed up because their option was prevent a pedophile. That was the options they were given in the richest country in the world, in a country that's supposed to be the leading democratic experiment on the planet. Those are your choices, not a pedophile or pedophile. Choose, and if you don't choose, this is all your fault.
Right. Those are the choices that the Democrats and Republicans offer. And obviously it is ludicrous, that we have just two parties. There is no law of nature. There is like no divine edict that says that a democracy has to work with only two parties or in a first past the post system. It is.
This is what Putin wants you to say. This is.
I am exposed.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. That was a clip from Get Your News On with Ron, the world's first viewer-curated streaming news show. What does that mean? That means I log on to a stream and people tweet me articles over on Twitter at Ron Placone, or they use our Reddit subsection, which is just Get Your News On with Ron over on Reddit. And that's how we build the show. I'm seeing all these articles for the first time. We are literally getting our news on together. Follow me on Twitter at Ron Placone so you can participate. And this show streams live every Tuesday through Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So please do tune in. If you want to support this show, you can do so over on patreon.com/Ron Placone, where for as low as $1 a month, you get access to exclusive podcasts every week, exclusive videos, free tickets to shows when I'm performing in your town, and more for as low as $1 a month. Please do consider it. Thank you so much for your support. This has been Get Your News On with Ron.